So if you guys are good, we're going to start down on the floor. We're going to sit. So if you want to prop yourself up with a block or a pillow or a blanket, you can either be cross-legged, you could have legs out straight, whatever might work best for you. And start by just closing your eyes or shifting your gaze down towards the floor. Take a couple nice deep breaths, maybe a light seal on your lips. And if you're not too stuffy, breathe exclusively through your nose. And just take a second to kind of scan from top to bottom and notice how you feel this morning. Right? Checking in with your breath as well, seeing if you can take a nice big breath, front, sides, and the back body. Maybe noticing where you might be holding on to more tension or doing more work than is necessary for what we're doing right now. Give those spots a reminder to relax and let go. And as you start to wind down that scan, pull your chin down towards your chest and find a little bit of backwards and upwards pull, almost as if you're trying to create a double chin here. So create more wrinkles on the front side of your neck. Then take your chin over to one side. Let your ear drop behind. And let's make a nice big circle with the head and the neck here. Greatest pain-free circle. You'll work your way over to your second side, going nice and slow. Noticing that you're not shifting your weight, flexing through your spine in order to make this happen. And we'll return chin to chest. Let's resit up tall here. So reset the entire structure. And then pull your chin back down towards your chest again, finding that backwards, upwards pressure, finding some more wrinkles and a double chin a little bit on the front side. And then take your chin over to your second side. Nice big head and neck circle here. Again, trying not to involve the rest of your spine, shifting your weight at all, letting this really come from the neck. We'll return chin to chest. Take both hands and interlace them, keeping your chin at your chest here. Go ahead and find the back of your head and put some light pressure down into the back of your head here. So just very gently try and push your chin closer to your chest. But on a scale of 1 to 10, you guys, this is like a 2, okay? So just very gently. You might find another little stretch through the back of the neck. Release the pressure in your hands and start to drive your head gently backwards into your hands. Again, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is about a 3. So just some light pressure. Still with your chin tucked ever so slightly to your chest. Good. Release those hands. Head comes stacked up on top again. You can keep your eyes closed or open them here. I'm going to take my right hand and reach up and overhead for the left side of my head. And I'm gently going to pull my right ear down towards my right shoulder. So just a very light amount of pressure here. Again, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is about a 2, very gently. Might find a nice stretch on the left side of the neck. Go ahead and release the pressure in your hand, but keep it where it is. Start to drive your head over to the left into your hand, but your hand is resisting. So it's sort of like an isometric contraction here. Again, you might actually feel a stretch as you try and drive your head from right to left. Good. Let your head win this battle here as you start to bring your head upright. And let's switch sides. Left hand reaches up and over for the right side of your head, gently pulling left ear down to left shoulder. Try not to bring the shoulders up to meet the ear. Let the shoulders sink low, And find the stretch on the right side of your head. Again, very low effort. Pause when you find that stretch. And then release the pressure in your hand. Try and drive your head from left to right. Your hand resists. So again, it's like that isometric contraction. Building just a little bit of strength in your head and your neck here. Nice job. Gently release. Go ahead and take your hands, interlace them, and just put them on the front of your forehead. Notice that you're not leaning automatically as you start to do this. So I'm just going to swivel myself around. So if you're watching, you can see myself here, my setup. I'm going to try and drive my forehead forwards into my hands. But again, my hands are resisting. So trying to build just a little strength in the front side of the neck. Okay. And then last time, head stacked right up on top of shoulders, hands go behind the head. This time, again, ear in line with your shoulder. Drive your head directly backwards into your hands. Still finding some length through the crown of your head as you do this. Go ahead and release. Let's start to circle your shoulder caps up, over, and around. Right? So the emphasis here is on your shoulder blades, not flexion or extension through your spine. You could even rest your hands on your knees as you do this, or on your legs. Go ahead and switch directions. Greatest pain-free circle here that you can make. As you finish up this next circle, take those arms up and overhead, maybe interlace your fingers, nice big stretch. So from hips out through the top of your hands here. As your hands break apart, just tip over to one side, take a nice big stretch. Think about someone having a string attached to the other side of your shirt or your rib cage, and it's sort of pulling, so you get a little bit of a curve through your spine. Go ahead and collapse it forwards. Walk your hands out in front of you. Gently push into the floor and round through your spine. Take a couple nice deep breaths and try and fill your back rib cage. On your next exhale, make your fingertips light as you start to roll up to sitting where you came from. Arms come up overhead. Interlace your fingers, press your hands high to the sky. Take a couple nice deep breaths. Try and get long through the sides of your body. Exhale, release and tip over to your second side here. Again, keeping some weight into this opposite sitting bone, right? Pushing, rooting down through that butt cheek. Trying to find a little bit of a curve through your spine here. Breathing into your opposite ribs. And then collapsing the whole thing forwards, walking your hands out in front of you. Same thing here, really rooting down through your fingertips, trying to find that cat shape, rounding through your spine. Even think about tucking your tailbone too. So chin and tailbone are tucking, pushing that spine back behind you, taking a few deep breaths. And then making your fingertips light as you start to stack yourself back up again. Take both palms, spin them forwards, up and overhead. Some nice big shoulder circles here. As you finish back, your palms will face out and away from you, okay? Reverse that circle. Try to wind up your arms so you're getting some internal and external rotation as you go. Maybe take a nice big breath to lift your arms overhead. And then a nice big exhale to release them back behind you. You could keep that cadence up. So every time your arms lift, you're inhaling. Every time your arms go down, you're exhaling. Let's do 2 more complete circles here. Noticing that you don't let this come from your spine. So you're not doing a back bend, right, in order to get there. It's really from your shoulders. Greatest pain-free range of motion here. Last one. This time we're going to finish with our arms overhead and then just take a gentle twist to one side. Doesn't matter which way you go, we're going to do both. Maybe using that hand pushing into your knee, or if your legs are extended, pushing into the outer knee, finding some rotation through your upper body. Perhaps looking over your back shoulder. Good. Take that back hand and cross it over your front one. So your arms are crisscrossed. Maybe they're holding onto your knees. Start to tuck your chin and your tailbone. Try to breathe into your upper back, the space between your shoulder blades. As you exhale, release those arms up and overhead again. Twist to your second side. So again, notice whether your butt is swiveling on the floor or if you could make this rotation come from your rib cage. Maybe you rotate through the neck and look over your back shoulder. Release that back arm, cross over your front one, tuck your chin and your tailbone. Breathe into your back ribs. Specifically, if you can think about sending the air up between your shoulder blades, that might feel good. As you release that breath, sit up nice and tall. Let's spike our heels into the floor, just like a gentle V here. Start to windshield wiper your legs, giving them a break from being bound up in a cross-legged position or just sitting out straight. Let's go ahead and make our way onto all fours, onto our hands and knees. And you can set yourself up here however feels best for you. So shoulders don't have to be right over wrists and hips don't have to be right over knees. Maybe you have a little bit of a longer stance. That's totally fine. When you get here, let's start to press into the middle three fingers and lift the palms and the heels of the hands. So you're actually trying to create a little bit of a stretch through the palm, through the middle three fingers. And then go ahead and flip those hands over so your palms face up and your fingers could face away from you. They could face your other hand. They could point backwards. Your choice if you do one hand at a time, that's the less intense version, or if you want to do both hands at the same time, so you'll be balancing on the tops of both hands. You can reduce the pressure here by shifting your hips back over your heels. Okay, so if shoulders right over wrists is too intense, butt back over your heels, that'll shift the weight backwards. Wherever you're at, try to make some fists with your palms, with your hands. If you're doing one hand at a time, try it on one side and then switch and try and put your palm up on the other side and make a fist. Right, so trying to find a stretch through the wrist and the forearm here. The caveat is, can you keep your elbows straight as we do this? Let's release one or both hands if you're doing them at the same time. Give one a shake out and then the other. If you want an extra little bonus here, you could sit back on your heels with your toes tucked under and give those hands a shake. So you get a little added bonus toe stretch here as we go. Come back to hands and knees here. And again, you could be on your knuckles. If you have your blocks close by, you could put your hands on your blocks. You could even come down onto your forearms for this next part. Let's start to tuck chin and tuck tailbone. Find some rounding through the spine here. As you go, try and max this out. So pause in this cat shape for a second. And notice through your spine, could I find a little more rounding from top of head to tip of tailbone? To release, we're going to untuck our tailbone first and roll like a wave through our spine to come into our cow, which means that our belly will be down and our collarbones and our tailbone will be sort of pointing up and away from one another, front to back. Good. Pause here. See if you could max out this spinal extension. Right? So could I think about touching my shoulder blades more together behind me to get that little back bend from my chest up and out through the crown of my head. From your tailbone, tuck under, round, round, round. Max out the rounding in each segment before you move on to the next. Taking some smooth, deep breaths here. Max out this rounding. And then from your tailbone, untuck, roll like a wave back to that cow. Let's go ahead and flatten out the spine. We're going to work on hips here real quick. Take one leg and send it out to the side next to you so that your big toe edge is down and the sole of your foot is exposed. Okay, so it's sort of pointing away from you. Drive down through your heel and try and rotate from your hip so that your toes point upwards towards the sky. Okay, might be a little bit, might be a lot. The one thing we're not going to do is, as my toes lift, watch my back for a second, my butt doesn't tuck under and I don't round through my spine to make this happen. So I keep that tabletop flat back, but my leg is rotating in the socket. Okay. And again, you might be able to lift it just enough to get a sheet of paper underneath it, and that's okay. Good. Press down through your other knee and your two hands, send that leg behind you, kick your heel up towards the sky, and then curl knee to nose underneath you. Try that again. Extend that leg behind you, kick your heel up towards the sky, really reach, and then knee to nose underneath you. Good. Last time, reach out behind you. And then as you pull your knee underneath, send it out. Let's find some of those nice big hip circles that we often do. Once forwards, and then reverse direction, once backwards. Nice and slow and under control. Notice if you're shifting your weight here. Good. As you come back through your tabletop, whatever leg you chose, so for me it was my right leg, my left knee is on the ground, I'm going to come into a modified side plank on my left side. So the leg that I just circled is going to reach out behind me. And I'm going to reach towards the sky. Think about someone having a little string attached to your rib cage on the top, and it's trying to pull those top ribs up towards the ceiling. Maybe that hand goes overhead, so you reach towards the short edge of your mat if you're using a mat this morning. Maybe that top arm reaches back behind you and you expose your chest towards the ceiling, so you're rotating chest up. Let's circle our way back down into our tabletop and then take a quick pass through a child's pose here. So you could prop yourself up with blocks between your heels to let your butt rest on, or you could reach back with your tailbone so your hips go over your heels as your hands walk forwards. Take some nice deep breaths in and out. This time the emphasis is on filling the rib cage to the left and the right. So try and expand outwards, side to side. As you release, you're sort of going to slither yourself forwards to come down onto your belly. First things first, squeeze your glutes together here, hands somewhere around the level of your shoulders. Try and drive the front of your hips into the floor so you create a little length through your low back. Squeeze between your shoulder blades, lift the front side of your body up off the floor. And then roll through your spine to tap your nose or your forehead back to the floor. 2 more times just like that. Squeeze behind the backs of the shoulders to lift. Keep squeezing your glutes and driving the front of your hips into the floor. Good, and lower down. Last time. This time as you get to the top, lift your hands and your feet. So lighting up all the muscles on the back side of the body here as you go. Nice, and then everything lands on the floor. Give yourself a nice big push up to your tabletop. And we're gonna start over. I'm just gonna flip around so I have room to extend. my second leg directly out to the side here. Big toe edge is down. The sole of my foot is exposed, right? And I'm gonna try and rotate through my leg so that my big toe lifts off the floor and tries to point towards the ceiling. But again, I don't round or tuck my tailbone to make this happen. It's just coming from my hip. The next time your big toe taps to the floor, go ahead and firm up through your hands and your opposite knee. Take that leg back behind you, reach heel up to the sky, and then try and tap knee to nose underneath you. Good, kick that heel out again. Reach and extend, knee to nose. Reach and extend. Last time, knee to nose. Reach and extend. And then as you release, pull that knee under, out and around, big hip circles on this side. Check in and notice whether you're wobbling or leaning to one side or the other. Try and recruit those shoulders and your core to minimize the wiggling as best you can. As you finish your next circle, let's come into your modified side plank on your second side here. So for me now, that will be my right hand and my right knee will be on the floor. Left side extended, trying to push my left ribs up towards the ceiling. Maybe taking that hand overhead towards the short edge of my mat. Breathing into those top ribs. Maybe taking that top arm and circling it back behind me so that my chest faces the ceiling. And then working my way back down. Let's take a quick pass through a nice big child's pose here. Reaching hands forwards. Optionally, you could spin your palms to face the sky so you get some more shoulder rotation here. You might find a good stretch sort of through your armpits and down the sides of your body if you spin your palms high. Couple nice big breaths. Emphasis on breathing out into the left and the right rib cage. On your next exhale, press into your hands, come back through tabletop here. Let's find a little more rotation in your rib cage. I'm going to take my left hand and step it just one hand's length forwards and slide my right one under and through. And I'm going to come to rest either on the shoulder or the side of my head. But the one thing you don't want to do, you guys, is sort of give yourself a crimp in your neck. So even if you come to rest on the side of your head, try to keep some length through your neck so that you're not hiking your ear towards your shoulder, right? So try and keep that space there. The fingers that are on the floor reaching away from you, keep reaching further. So slide the back of your hand more away from you. Find that rotation coming from your rib cage. As you exhale, let's pass back through tabletop and go to the other side. So right hand steps one length forwards, left one threads under and through. And again, I'm not collapsing my ear to the floor. I'm actually trying to be on like the top corner of my skull, okay? Not trying to have my ear resting on the floor. So create that length in your cervical spine, in your neck. Keep taking some big breaths as you slide those fingers further away from you. As you exhale, press back up through center, back to your tabletop. Extend one leg long down the mat, tuck your toes, and start to drive your heel away from you. Find a calf stretch. And then as you feel ready, tip over to your pinky toe edge, roll over the laces of your foot onto your big toe edge. So you circle your ankle here. And if you don't want to be up on your hands, you can certainly be down on your forearms or on your knuckles. Think about trying to dig a hole in the sand at the beach. Pause anywhere you feel a good stretch here. And then let's switch sides. Same thing. It's going to start with tucking your toes and driving your heel away from you. And then tipping either to the big toe or the pinky toe edge, circling that ankle around. Greatest pain-free circle here. As you release back through tabletop, let's take one more pass through this toe stretch. So go ahead and tuck your toes. Option one is to stay in this tabletop and just shift your hips back over your heels so that there's more pressure, more weight back there. As you get more comfortable, your hands walk closer, and then maybe you get to the point where your head and hips are stacked vertically, sort of right over your toes. You might have to actually flip your pinky toes under. Mine sort of get hung up here. Sit up nice and tall, maybe close your eyes and take a couple nice deep breaths. You can stay here as long or as little as you want. So if you've got really sensitive toes or the soles of your feet, maybe you've got some plantar fasciitis happening, you can do a little bit of this, drip, drip, drip over time versus one long sitting here. As you exhale, let's do the opposite stretch, which would be to put your laces down. And again, you could put some blocks here between your butt and the floor to carry most of your weight, or you could sit right back on your heels. If the tops of your feet don't sit flush to the floor, you could take a towel and roll it up, create a little log, and slide it underneath your ankles here. That might bridge the gap. But if you're here with me, let's start to lean back and lift one knee at a time up off the floor. So you're actually stretching the front of your ankle down into your foot. Maybe you get a little bit on the front side of your shins. If that's no big deal, you could lean back and lift both knees up off the floor at the same time. I don't know if you guys can quite tell because my pants are sort of the same color as my mat, but I have both knees back up off the floor here, okay? As you finish, let's come back around, swivel yourself back to a comfortable seated position. Spike those heels into the floor and take some nice big windshield wipers here. You could even emphasize this trailing knee, firing up the muscles on the inside of this leg to try and pull that knee closer to the mat. So more internal rotation in that hip, which we don't get a lot of. The next time you tip over to one side, you're sort of in this loose 90-90 position. I don't care too much about things being perfectly square, but let's just take your chest over one leg and find a nice big stretch. So your hands could support you, your elbows could support you, whatever you prefer. To come up, you're actually going to press down through your leg more so than your hands. So think about smashing your leg into the floor, firing up all the muscles on the underside of that front leg. Make your fingertips light to come up. Let's swivel to the second side and try the same thing. So sort of a loose 90-90 position here. Lean forwards, find the stretch. And you could be directly over this leg, or you could sort of walk yourself over to one side, get a little side stretch happening here as opposed to being square to your front shin. And you might have the same positioning and the same stretch as you did on your first side, or it might feel completely different. To come up again, this time you're going to try and push this leg down into the floor. So think about you could sweep it down into the room beneath you as your hands get light and bring yourself back up. Just pick a comfortable position to sit for a second here. That could be cross-legged, that could be legs out straight. You could even actually lay down on your back if you are going to hang out here after we're done. But find your head over your hips if you're sitting upright. Maybe soften your gaze towards the floor or close your eyes altogether. Take a light seal on your lips and breathe in and out through your nose. Try that same scan that we did at the beginning of the session, where you go from the top of your head all the way down through your body, out through the soles of your feet. Pausing to notice how you feel. Noticing any areas that feel good, or maybe ones that you want to spend more time on, either today or in the next session. And then last but not least, noticing if you're doing more work than is necessary anywhere. Perhaps bring some movement to that space to give it a reminder, or just consciously send the message to relax and let go. Let's close things out with 5 or 6 deep breaths here, trying to fill the lungs completely in 360 degrees. Taking a few deep breaths here, maybe pausing to hold full at the top of the breath. So maxing out your lungs, trying to pull in as much air as you can. Gently letting it all go, no force here. Until you get to the very end, maybe you try and squeeze out the last little bits of stale air at the base of your lungs, and you pause to hold empty at the bottom of that breath. Doesn't have to be for long, it could just be for a fraction of a second. When you're ready to breathe in, try and do a slow, smooth inhale instead of just gasping for air. Trying to max out that breath. Maybe add the pause at the top, and then gently letting it all go. Maybe squeezing out the remainder of the air, maybe not. Last big breath in, and big breath out. And as you finish that exhale, dipping your chin down towards your chest, fluttering your eyes open, and coming back into the space around you.